welcome everybody to this webinar. Today, me and Antti, we're going to be talking about the must-win battles of geospatial data, which is a very on-time topic. Before jumping into the show, I just want to introduce ourselves quickly. I'm Luukas Raatikainen. I'm working at Statistical as a sales and marketing coordinator. And I had no idea what geospatial data was until I joined Statistical. I've been now working at Statistical for 3 years, and I've learned a lot about data all overall. Prior to that, I had no idea about geospatial data, and even if I was using geospatial data a lot, I didn't know about it, which is a fun fact. But that's all about me. Antti, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Antti Jakobsson. I'm working as a chief engineer at the National Land Survey of Finland. I'm a little bit afraid to say, but I've been working there nearly 30 years. 30 years actually this year. So quite a long time. I've been also working with Eurogeographics for, let's say, 5 years. So I know a little bit about the Europe and working with European projects. Currently also leading one of the project, which we'll be talking a little bit also today.
Very good to hear. And hey, thanks you, Antti, for joining this webinar with me. It was a great thing to get you on board. Yeah. Before I start the show, I want to mention that we're going to be recording this whole thing. Everybody who has registered to the webinar will get a recording of this tomorrow, actually, automatically from GoToWebinar. And I will be also uploading this whole thing to YouTube by next week, hopefully. But on to the topic. As said, the must-win battles of geospatial data. There are several of those, but Antti and me, we thought that these three would be the best ones to talk about today. So geospatial is very technical and special. Geospatial is for professionals currently, and geospatial is everywhere. I think these three kind of like culminate the whole uphill battles of geospatial data currently, and these are something we must win in order to make geospatial data more known and more available, more easy to use in the future. I'm going to let Antti take the wheel now. He has a lot of things to say about this. I know that for a fact. As said, he has been working with this for a long time, so he knows more about the topic than I would ever know, basically. Okay, Antti, I've given you now the presenter rights. And now we can see your screen. Very good.
All right, let's start with the first one. First statement was this geospatial is very technical and special. So I've gathered certain examples of what we mean by this first battle, and let's start with the first one. And as probably you can see, it could be called as a fake news. But it also indicates that a map is a very powerful interface and present information in that way that it can be understood by everyone. So even Mr. Trump has been using a map quite frequently in order to have his message to the people. So it's a very powerful tool. So that's why it can be understood by everyone. On the other hand, another example of, let's say, a little bit more dynamic and using the geospatial data actually is the example of how the air traffic changed during the COVID-19 pandemic. And it also indicates how our science, if we call it map science, is changing towards something called data science. So it's something that everybody working with the data science would be starting to use, and it's also evident that location data is produced by everyone, and it's also produced also by machines, etc. So that is evident that the planes, for example, gather this information. And we can utilize this in order to make things clearer for everyone.
I have a question, Antti, on this thing, kind of. You said that making geospatial data and making maps has become more advanced, and as we can see in that map, it's looking really good, and it has a huge amount of data in that map alone. Something we have discussed at Spatino, and I want to point out kind of like a question to you. Even if map interface has gotten way more complex and it has more info than ever, are still people reading these complex maps like old maps? Even if you look at, people are used to looking at paper maps, and they look like, let's say, Google Maps or any maps these days with the same kind of thinking that they would be looking at paper maps, even if these interfaces have so much more data put into them. How could we tackle this as well, since everything is now more complex and has more info on them?
Well, of course, it's something that when these providers of these services are kind of have to take into account, that when they design the map interface, they would have to take into account that how people are actually capable of understanding this information, and of course that is one of the challenges that we have to kind of prove. I will be talking about that a little bit later, which is kind of a kind of learning challenge, for example.
That's good.
Okay. Then if we move on, the next one is the case of AI and IoT. And you can see that, of course, it's very technical. So if we say that the geospatial is technical, everything else is also technical. So basically, technology is not the issue, and that's not the issue. It's that how we use the technology. And in case of the, for example, I saw the smart city cases here, we can show that in a way the technology is embedded in that sense that people are not really understanding that they are using geospatial technology in their everyday life. And Luukas, for example, said the same thing, that he was using geospatial technology even he didn't realize it. And for example, smart parking is a good example of that basically you just park and utilize the technology. And one of those technologies is geospatial technology. So you don't really realize that geospatial is under certain solutions. So that's something that is very, very evident also today.
True, definitely true.
Yeah. Then we go to the learning case, and I wanted to show this. This one example. It's not related to geospatial at all, but you might know that, for example, Helsinki University and Reactor has organized this very, very popular course on the elements of AI, and it has been a free online course, and they have been able to provide this course over to 550,000 people that have been willing to learn the basics of AI. So that's a kind of evidence that even technical things can be very, very, very interesting, and people are keen to learn about those technologies. One of our challenges is that who is going to provide, for example, this kind of learning course for geospatial data that would be so interesting that, for example, 550,000 people would be willing to take it. One of the for example, in this Helsinki University case, they also have now provided a continuous course, and that's called Building AI, and I actually have done that recently. And one interesting thing in that was that they basically they used geospatial examples in many of the AI examples. So AI is a perfect example how geospatial technology is embedded inside something else. and that's something that we should try to utilize as well. But of course, we would have to provide also this kind of learning courses for people to understand how to use the geospatial technology.
Something I would like to point out on this one. I've always thought that even if I'm somebody who has been sitting in front of a computer all my life, and still when I joined Spatino, it was really hard for me to actually grasp what geospatial data was, how it's being shared, and how it's being utilized. Is there some way we could make it easier for everybody to actually grasp what geospatial data is? Something everybody has been talking about, and our Ilkka at Spatino, he's always telling me about this, but standardization is something maybe we should do even more. If everything is standardized, let's say an OGC is a good example on this one. If we have everything standardized, maybe that could be a way to actually even teach the whole subject to people more. I don't know. This is just a thought here.
Well, of course, standardization is a key thing. I will be I will be a little bit mentioning the standardization in this one, but it means that it has to be easy for people to start doing that, and that is something that well, basically one of our challenges is that because geospatial is everywhere, it's something that people should understand and probably should take even in the elementary schools in order to start doing the basics and the basic understanding of geospatial information and data. So that's something that should be kind of thought about when this kind of learning courses are designed, and everybody should have understanding of geospatial data, and people are, I think this is already kind of happening already today, but sometimes people do not really realize that they actually understand elements of the geospatial things. But this example of elements of AI and takes that forward in that sense that people are actually taking this elements course.
Good point.
Okay, let's move on. One of the things related to technology and if it's something special is that when people are doing innovation, do they actually realize to start utilization of geospatial technology? And I wanted to mention one great example, which is the Geospatial program that UK has been introducing over the past years. And I think it's a good example how you could actually start bringing geospatial technology into those startups and into those technology firms, that they can actually benefit of doing solutions using geospatial technology. And I know that many other European countries are thinking of this, but I think one of great example is this UK example, how they have been successful of funding and having a lot of location-based solutions based using this Geospatial program. And it recently also has been introduced in Scotland as well. One thing that I've been recently also monitoring is this UK-based GeoMop, which is kind of providing presentations of startups, and that is something that has also been spreading over the Europe now. So there are some things happening in Barcelona, etc. So that's also very interesting thing that has happened.
There's a question, Antti, related to this, actually the elements of AI and geospatial data. One person from the crowd asked that who is currently like the geospatial AI professional? Who could be basically teaching this? Is there any potential candidates? And is it a geospatial professional who has added the skills into AI, for example? Can we somehow combine AI and geospatial data as well? This two-layer question.
Yeah, well, basically, there's, of course, that's a good question. Of course, there are universities, for example, that are teaching geospatial technologies. In our Finnish case, there are two major universities. One is the Technological University, and one is the Helsinki University, that are kind of both teaching geospatial technologies. So I think it would be a combination of using both of those resources. And as I said, I think AI is an example case, exemplar case where you could utilize geospatial technology. I also have done a recent, well, it's not very recent, but a few years back, I took the first AI course, and it was surprising that they actually used the geospatial examples without understanding anything about geospatial technology. So they just considered X and Y coordinates as an attributes, but it still worked. But sometimes I have to say that, okay, there's a strong correlation between the X and Y coordinates. Why you are not using that correlation, for example, or take that correlation into account. So even currently, AI is utilized without knowledge of geospatial things. But that was a good question. Okay, that was the first statement that I wanted to say. So in order to have some kind of conclusion, it's true that geospatial is technical, but it is no exception. So everything is technical, very technical today, and our society is very dependent on technical solutions. It is also true that it is special, but it should be applied more, and we basically should kind of try to emerge this technology under the other technologies as well, and take the advantage of AI, for example. So that is also something that we should be working more. So those were the conclusions for the first statement.
Yeah, definitely agree on those conclusions.
All right. Then we can move to the second one, that geospatial is for professionals currently. And if I take the first picture, this is something that I'm always kind of very worried when I see this kind of map or Mercator projection used, for example, in television, and of course that is something very special for Nordic countries, for example, that if you use the Mercator projection, then you see these countries very large. And I use this project, this the truesize.com as an example of how this projection actually changes the size of these countries. So basically, something that people that are not professional in this area don't necessarily think about when they actually start using these services. So basically, it doesn't really matter, of course, but something that, for example, professionals that are kind of providing these services should think about, and provide the right type of projections when utilizing the map services. So that is something that is important. That was the one thing that we have to always kind of be wary of when we kind of use various projections.
Question for me related to this, that geospatial is for professional. I want to get this, I want to ask this from you right away, basically.
Yeah.
Has geospatial data been constructed to professionals by design, or has geospatial data have in our industry, has the data been tried to make as available as possible outside professional circles, or has it been built only for professionals by intent? What was the goal? Let's say when our industry started to build the standards and everything. Was it meant that only professionals would be using this data? This is something I've been wondering for a long time myself.
Well, I think the original answer, if you think about, for example, the mapping organizations, is that the original intent was to create the maps. So that is something that we probably still are trying to do, but we as a professionals are trying to go away from that concept and start to provide geospatial as an information asset. And that is something that is still, we are struggling a little bit on that, because we as a professionals try to kind of show to people that you can use geospatial as an information asset, not as a map. But when you talk to the people that really don't understand geospatial information as an asset, then normally what they reply is that, okay, we need, for example, map service, and that's fine. But that is something that is interesting from the professional point of view, that we are trying to kind of help people to utilize geospatial as an integrated part of other information, and that is something that's not necessarily understood by the other professionals. So I don't know if I answered the question, but that's my thinking.
You definitely did. That explains part of the question, definitely.
All right, then we move on. The other thing that that I wanted to provide an example is how you can provide geospatial information as a statistical information and take into account that you can integrate a lot of other data to geographic geospatial data. And this example comes from our beta service from the geospatial platform that we had this project about 1 year ago. And then we released this kind of beta service where you actually can look the national topographic data as a statistical data. And this example shows how many buildings we basically have in various municipalities. And basically we have created automatically a thematic map on that. And we, in this case, we also saw how many holiday buildings we have in various municipalities. So it's a kind of example of that when you are dealing with other professionals and non-professionals, especially, it might be useful to actually provide geospatial data as a table form or as a thematic map, that you don't actually show just that we have these buildings, that you can utilize this in different ways. I don't know if...
Now we're seeing your PowerPoint.
Do you see my PowerPoint still?
Yeah, okay, now we see the presentation again.
Okay, yeah, okay. So there's something strange that it changes to different.
Seeing the PowerPoint again.
Okay, hopefully it works now.
Yeah, now we see the presentation.
All right. So that was my one point, is that you could actually show it in a different way. The next one is also related a little bit in the same topic, is that you could also use the table-based data and provide it directly to geospatial data. And we actually also provided this beta service within the geospatial platform, that you actually can easily publish table-based data to geospatial data. And we use the OGC table joining service for that. And I think that's a great example, is that how you can ease how people could actually publish their own thematic maps and start using the power of geospatial technology by providing this kind of easy use services. And then people don't really have to work and combine or use GIS software, that you actually provide a map directly from your statistical data that has some kind of geospatial component, and in this case, it's for example the municipalities in this case. So that's one example how you could actually start providing this technology to non-professionals.
Good point.
And then the maybe one last example is the is it true that it's only for professionals? Well, I wanted to show this case. It's this heating map, or how much energy the buildings are consuming in Helsinki. It's probably targeted to the professionals, but it's not targeted to geospatial professionals. It's targeted to other professionals. And basically using this 3D possibilities of putting this kind of heating information available in this 3D picture or 3D service provides an easy way for understanding how much energy buildings are using. And that comes to the area that the geospatial technology is very important, for example, for climate change and for utilization of thinking how we can reduce energy consumption, for example, and 3D technology provides quite good example how you can visualize things that is the power of geospatial technology.
I've always agreed that geospatial data has a huge impact on several things, and the data should be more available to outside geospatial industry. Basically, there's lots of professionals. I would have asked you this: that should we make some sort of different kind of interfaces for different kind of professionals? And that image actually answers to that question. Yes, we definitely should make data available in the format that professional, let's say construction companies, could use in this case, or somebody who's fighting climate change via calculating energy costs, something like that. So different kind of interfaces for different kind of professionals.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Yeah. And last example related to this one, which a little bit was already mentioned by Luukas, was the standardization. So I think this web best practices published a few years ago is a good example how we can integrate geospatial technology onto those that are actually doing development using the web, and how we can how we should use best use the geospatial technology things within the web. And for example, this linked data is one thing. This URIs, persistent URIs, utilization of convenience APIs, which has been, by the way, I think one of the difficulties currently is that we designed the APIs previously so that they were so complicated that it was very difficult for the developers to actually start using that. Fortunately, this is now changing with this OGC new APIs. I think that will be the game changer in that sense, that more and more developers start utilization of these APIs, and it's really easy. And if you have seen examples of for example, OGC feature API, that provides lot of capabilities, and it's very easy to kind of start using. One of the things that we will be working also is the harmonization issue, which I will be talking a little bit later. So that's an example of how we should integrate with the utilization of the web-based practices. So in order to summarize this one, this statement is also true that it's for professionals, but it's more used by other professionals than geospatial experts today. And that is something that we should be start kind of realizing more. And of course, it's not true in that sense that we as a consumer are utilizing geospatial technologies a lot today, but we do not necessarily understand that we are using this geospatial technology, and basically we are using that either as a map, or it might be already hidden in that sense that you don't really see anything, but geospatial technology is behind. So that was the second one.
That's a good conclusion. It's so true that even if geospatial data is for professionals, the customers see such a polished and refined end product that we might not even realize that there's a lot of geospatial data like beneath the hood, you could even say. The parking apps are a good example of this.
Yeah,
even if we utilize those really often, we might never think that it's actually geospatial data behind there.
Yeah, that's true. So the third one, the last one, is this geospatial is everywhere statement. And of course, that is something that we as an industry, we always want to see that geospatial is everywhere. And I want to kind of start talking few aspects on this one. And I thought that first one, I wanted to show certain services. So basically, it's true in that sense that we can nowadays utilize geospatial data in many services. I provided here 3 different services. The first one you can probably see is the OpenStreetMap picture. This is, by the way, where I'm living in Finland, in Kerava. So this is what you see is my house that I'm currently sitting. And the first one is the OpenStreetMap. The second one is actually governmental service on the same part. And basically what, of course, you probably would be expecting from the governmental service is the capability of showing cadastral boundaries. Normally, you wouldn't be seeing the cadastral boundaries in those other services, but for governmental services, you would be expecting to see, for example, this cadastral boundaries. And the third one, I wanted to use the Google Street View, and I put the current version of the Google Street View there available. And my question to you is that if you are looking these services, would you be able to say which one is the most up to date? If you can write, for example, or best, I will then give you a little bit time for thinking of that. But then I would say what would be my guess, or basically I'm living here, so I know that what would have been changed in this neighborhood.
Well, people are writing their answers. You can actually answer the questions box or the chat box around one or the other side of your screen. It's really hard to say from those pictures. In my opinion, they all look updated and they look like good information. But saying which one is the most updated one is almost impossible for me to actually pinpoint now.
Yeah, that's probably a correct answer as well, because basically if you're looking these kind of services, your assumption would be that the map is correct and it's up to date. That's, I think, is the assumption of the person that is utilizing a service. Of course, as a professional, we know that that is not true. So basically, it could be very old information which appears to be up to date, but of course, as a service user, you don't know that. And one interesting thing from these services is that it's very hidden if they show which date the information actually is coming. And that is something that I've been wondering quite many years now, is that why it is so that the service providers or map providers, even we as a map provider, we don't provide this information very easily. You could find it from different parts or different place. What is the up-to-dateness information? But when you're utilizing this service, we don't provide it. I don't think anybody actually provides this kind of information very easily today. And my answer to the question is that the most non-up-to-date picture we are seeing from these ones today is the Google one, this picture of our house. And that is because Google hasn't updated its Street View quite a long time in this neighborhood. And why I know it is that I'm looking at our old car there in the picture. And it's nearly 13 years ago that we had this car, so we know that it is very, very old picture of which otherwise it's quite fine. Nothing has really changed in this neighborhood except this car.
That gives it away. There's a couple of people who guessed that the latest out of those three was the government, the one in the middle, that one. But
yeah, that's probably also quite good answer in that sense. That my next question would have been that which one you think would be the most reliable in that sense, and in that sense, it goes to the question of where people actually trust. And if you think about how these things are being produced, I think at least in Europe, most people would be trusting the governmental service that it's probably most up to date because they know, for example, from experience that there is a continuous updating program and the governmental updates this information. And there we come to those topics that I have here, this open data, my data, data security and protection, the authoritative data, and the high-value datasets. And these are kind of valid questions in that sense that, okay, how we are going to kind of answer these different demands of quality, how reliable information is, and where this information actually comes from. And that comes, I think, more and more important today than it has been previously, because there are a lot of different services that are going to provide information. And when you are thinking as a producer, is that, and if you rely on those on that information, not only as a map image, but you actually start making certain decisions based on this information, you have to understand and have to know this information, that where it comes from, what is the quality, is it reliable, and of course also people want to nowadays start to control their information. For example, we have had a lot of discussions recently about the address data. Can a person that has kind of security problems deny that, for example, the personal address is not visible in the map, for example? And there we have to separate the concepts of the person's address and the address of the building, for example. These kind of concepts comes very, very important nowadays. So that's something that we have to think about when this geospatial technology starts to be utilized in various different services. My second, which I a little bit touched already, was this quality. Actually my favorite topic, and I put certain things in this picture, and that is something, for example, that when people start thinking of quality, I put the quality part in this picture, and basically it shows that the most important thing, first of all, is when they think about utilizing geospatial data, is that is it covering my interest area? So the most important thing is to cover a certain area. Then you think when you start thinking is that if if it is complete, does it have all this data that I want to have even inside that area? And then we come to this question of up-to-dateness. But then suddenly we also come to the question of interoperability, and that comes to a place to the game in that sense that if you want to start utilizing different data sets, then interoperability comes as an important question, because if you want to integrate data, you have to be certain that these data sets can be integrated together, and the question of interoperability comes to a play. Then availability is also very important thing, because most of these services you don't necessarily can rely that a certain service is available, for example, 24 hours, 7 days. And then finally we come to the accuracy question, which is the normal thinking when you ask somebody about the data quality on spatial geospatial data. Then the first thing that comes as a professional point of view is the spatial accuracy, but there are so many other quality elements that you have to think before actually accuracy comes to a play. Then we come to the question of quality engine and harmonization engine, which I put there in the picture. And my thinking today is that we should automate these things more and more. We already have shown, at least in Finland, and I know that in other mapping agencies, they have provided these quality engine type of services where you can validate data sets quite easily today. But one of the challenges we haven't answered yet is the harmonization challenge. And I think the harmonization should be also automated in the future more. And then I put the different aspects on the quality as well, that you can think about these quality in different levels as well, and use more and more. I think we should understand that this feature level type of information is very important, that you should not only provide quality as a metadata, you should actually put quality information into features itself, etc. So there are many aspects here, but I wanted to talk about a little bit about those aspects when you actually start providing geospatial data to that it should be available in various other services as well.
Very good points there.
And then finally, I would take the governmental aspect, which is something that, of course, I'm very keen on in that sense that because working at the National Mapping Agency, we are always thinking of how we could start putting this geospatial data into use. And one aspect is, in my view, is that the map interface is a very powerful thing for providing governmental base data and providing this kind of user interface for many things. And I provided here an example of our social services, which is currently provided our Social Security office. They are using our governmental data map interface. And for example, in that map interface, you can search for service locations where they are located. And I put also the path that you could walk from my place to this Social Security location, and actually it shows the walking path. So basically we can today provide this kind of services easily for citizens, that they can see that how governmental services are available. In order to be useful in that sense, we also need the integration platforms. We need dashboards for providing the usefulness of the data. I already mentioned the quality engines and the harmonization engines, but we also need the innovation hubs, and also with what I haven't mentioned is the microservices for various solutions. So we have to start providing this kind of non-map based services. For example, we would have to provide this kind of validate address service in order for various other base data sets that or base data services within the government that they actually can utilize geospatial technology in order to make sure that, for example, address that a certain user has provided is valid, and that kind of microservices come to question, and we would have to provide this kind of services. So this means that the governmental data has to be we have to be ready to work with other governmental data providers in order to provide useful information for them.
So interoperability is also important.
Interoperability, yes, in that sense. So that was the last one. I will end this presentation with mentioning the GeoE3 project that started in October. National Land Survey Finland is leading that with some other mapping agencies in Europe. And basically what we are trying to work on are certain topics I mentioned today that we want to create this geospatially enabled ecosystem for Europe. And I think that's a kind of something that we as a professionals have to start to work on, that we have to enable the utilization of geospatial technology in other areas and to integrate data, and that would be the solution how we can win these three different battles. And that's my end statement.
Thank you, Antti. That's a very good presentation and very good points from you. Thank you very much for presenting that. My last point to the last battle, that geospatial data is everywhere. I've always thought that, now that I've been at Spatium for several years, and I've seen how companies and private people use geospatial data, I've started to realize that geospatial data is kind of like the foundation of several things. But since foundations are built first, and then they're kind of like when you build a house, the foundations are there, but people might not see that. But it's such a core thing in several different kind of operating systems and everywhere that we have like forgotten about those. We should bring geospatial data back to the spotlight where it belongs, in my opinion. And maybe that way more people would learn about geospatial data and know about it and utilize it even more. That's my opinion on this topic.
Yeah, one thing that I've been recently thinking is the map itself, and as had examples, is that a map is a very powerful interface, and I think that is something that we should still remember when we are, as a professional, try to put this geospatial data in use. We still have to remember that the actual map is the way to utilize the geospatial information, and spatial location data is kind of combining different components together.
Very much true. There's something I want to ask from you people at the webinar. I'm actually going to launch a poll now, and I would like to actually you to answer this. You should be now able to see a question I would like you to answer. I'll give you a minute to answer to this one. But what do you think, out of these three challenges we presented you today, what is the most important for us to win as a community, as geospatial community? What is the one that we need to win the most, in your opinion? I'm just curious about what do you guys think about this? Out of these three, if you would have to only focus on one, what would you focus on? These three challenges we've talked today. What is, in your opinion, the most important one? We're still collecting responses. We are seeing lots of responses. I'm actually going to close the poll now. Thank you. I think everybody had time to answer to that one. Let's see if I can actually show you this one. This is the spread we got from the answers. So most people today here at the webinar think that geospatial data is everywhere, but nobody knows about it. It's the biggest challenge we have as an industry. And definitely, I personally agree on that point. Geospatial data should be brought into the spotlight more. That's my personal opinion on this. I think that's everything we were supposed to talk about today. Do you have anything to add on?
No, I hope it was interesting enough.
Yeah, definitely. I was supposed to ask you questions and everything throughout the show, but I was so focused on listening to you. I had my notes down and everything, but still, I want to focus on your talk. A very good presentation, you from. Thank you very much for attending today. Everybody who joined us today, thank you very much as well. I'm going to be sending you the recording of this tomorrow from GoToWebinar, and this will be also uploaded to YouTube by the end of let's say next week. I'll try to get it to YouTube by then. I'm going to close the webinar in a couple of seconds. Thank you everybody for participating. Once the webinar closes, there is a small survey for you, which is 4 questions on what do you think about the webinar. Just feel free to answer to that, and we would be very pleased to hear feedback on this one. Thank you, Antti, again.
Thank you, Lucas.
In case somebody has questions we missed or we didn't answer or something, feel free to email us. You should have my email and Antti's email. I put that info somewhere of this webinar. So feel free to message us. We'll be happy to answer your questions in the future as well. Thank you, everybody. And I wish you a happy Tuesday. Is it Tuesday now? It is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I'm sitting at home. The days get messed up at some point. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'll try to close the webinar now and answer the survey and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.